Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the bi-weekly update. There's a lot going on, so it'll be a timely day. Things we have going on are inflation, war, supply chain, this market. Remember, faith, patience, and discipline are what we talk about, and we'll discuss more about it. But there are some current issues we're going to want to touch base on today. So we'll have some Zach's Facts, we'll have Ken's Corner. We'll also have Mike's Minute, attended this time by Ryan. So I guess we'll have to call it Ryan's Rhetoric. I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out as well. But at any rate, we have a few things going on today. But my theme for today is 70-52. And you'll find out more about what that means a little bit later. So I do want to start off with something. I want to start with gratitude. My gratitude today is 70-52. Reason being, it'll be tomorrow. Also for a busy time of year, parenting, Abundance 360, ideas. There's a bunch of things I'm grateful for, but really I'll start with 70-52 and we'll talk more about that later. How about Ken?
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here with you all as usual. My gratitude goes out to, we were invited to a local veterans group recently and had a chance to sit with some veterans and talk with them. And just, my heart goes out to, and my gratitude goes out to what they've done for our country and what they've done for us to allow the freedoms to sit here on a Zoom call and have a conversation with you all that are listening right now. It really is remarkable. So I just want to say thank you to all the veterans. Thank you if you've served. Thank you for someone who you knew have served. It just really is a wonderful thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate it. How about yourself, Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. A lot of gratitude as always. Specifically, it'll be my 29th trip around the sun on Saturday of this week. But most importantly, on that day as well is that not my birthday, but one of my brothers by life, not by blood, is getting married. And so I get to be in that wedding and celebrate with them. So I just absolutely love celebrating the wins and successes of everyone around me. And I just can't wait to do that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Ryan, I'll get to you as well. So how about you, since you're doing Mike's Minute? Ryan, how about yourself?
Yeah, Mike's Minute with Ryan today. Thanks, Chris. Full of gratitude today just to be able to be on here and speaking with my group of colleagues here and getting to be a part of this that I think is just a wonderful thing that we put on for the clients, and being able to be a part of it, I think is a pretty awesome thing for me this week. Awesome.
Thank you very much. I'm also grateful for the team that you see here. Really what we've had is a lot of conversation around what it is we do. Of course, we help you with money, but we know we're also just in helping you live the best life you can. So these people are all very, very committed to that as well. I just wanted to make sure you understand that, and my heartfelt thank you to all of them for serving you. So let me ask you a question. I got to ask you a question. What's the shortest month of the year? May. M-A-Y. It's only 3 letters. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty good one. That's a dad joke you can actually bring up to somebody. They might go February, obviously. Anyway, I love explaining jokes, even though you don't need to. Those are kind of fun. But one thing I want to say is, you start to see flowers come out. It's only 40 degrees here today for our high. It was 26 last night here in Milwaukee, which is great because it means that spring is, well, it's somewhere down the road. But despite that, you're starting to see flowers come out and you're starting to see, trees. And what's the thing I find really amazing about it is, I find most amazing about how friendly trees and flowers are. They always have new buds. Anyway, so I'll stop with the dad jokes. There's a lot of serious things to go on. What I want to do here is, and I want to make a statement before we do anything else. And this is kind of a statement. It comes directly from our newsletter we put out in January, but it comes with reiteration. One thing I want to say, and you all are very, very good at this, but this is time when markets start to test you, when they re-examine their lows, which they did yesterday. We have a plan in place and have funded it with what has historically been the most appropriate types of investments. We'll hardly ever recommend that you change that portfolio. As a matter of fact, so long as your long-term goals remain consistent and haven't changed. As a general statement, from us, we have found that more often investors who change their portfolios in response to whatever, the more they do that, the worse their long-term returns. I want to make that statement because sometimes we don't make it that plain and evident. Why do we talk about all this? Because we have found that those who don't are listless and do not achieve what they're looking for, which is lifetime income in retirement. So at any rate, I wanted to go through that and say, just from things we found, those are super important. So one thing as well, I just got back from Abundance 360, 3 days of it being on Zoom this time. It's kind of a mixed Zoom, mixed in person, but I'm still downloading a lot of it. There's some very, very important things to watch I'm going to bring to mind for you. So for instance, this is the forum where we discover the world's technology advances and then the issues that they bring up. Notice how I said that. Technology advances and issues they bring up. You're all very aware of the microchip, born in, say, around 1958, and it started with 2 transistors. By about 1971, that microchip had around 2,000 transistors. That's astounding. So just in 13 years, it went up 1,000 times. By 2018, that same transistor we call a microchip had 7 billion resistors built into it. So you're looking at this microchip advance, and you know the speeds from 2018 to 2028, the speed with which these will increase, Moore's law is still going on, is unfathomable by the human mind. Now, this comes from some of the top technology people in the world at the program. So think about this. Within the next 10 years of your life, what computers can do with their speed and their computing power is literally unfathomable by the human mind. Later on during the program, they began to say the human species is evolving due to massive strain put in by information technology. So our species is actually evolving, they say, by the fact of the stresses we're putting on it for day-to-day decision-making and information overload. Our brains are rewiring. You're seeing that as well. You noticed about every 100 years, all information in the world used to double. Then I said of 1984, about every 18 months, all information in the world doubles. Now, every 12 hours, all information in the world doubles. How does the human mind deal with that? Not well. Here's some trends to watch. I'll talk more about this at our forum coming up as well, but DeFi, DAOs, DAO, they're DAOs, Web 3.0, cryptocurrencies, material science, drones, VTOLs, which are vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, airplanes no more, but they're airplanes that actually take up straight off. They don't need a runway. The consistency of rockets that are printed, 3D printed homes, different ways we're finding for UBI, universal based income. Most of them believe there's going to be a ton of money made in these. We can actually change our welfare system to, if you live in America, you have a universal based income of a certain amount. And then beyond that, whatever you decide to do beyond that is up to you. So these are the conversations that some of the top technologists and policymakers are having, if you will, at our Abundance 360. I just wanted to bring a few to those. But here's the thing that I probably want to tell you. About 2 or 3 years ago, we had a conversation with Ray Kurzweil, and they introduced the idea of artificial intelligence creating itself. So in other words, it's beginning to write its own models for itself. And what I found at the time, I said, well, they made some predictions about how fast it would happen, and they kind of gave us this chart. And I said, well, since it's creating itself, it becomes better and better and faster at it. You could be way off. It could happen much faster than what you expect. Well, no, we think this, we measure this. Well, we come back today, and what they're surprised about is that artificial intelligence is creating itself much faster than they expected. So I didn't want to say I'm right, but the interesting part of it is sometimes you get super smart people together, and I'm not that smart. I'm kind of dull in that sense compared to them. You just have realizations of going, I don't think you guys understand what's happening here. And they do to some form, but it was interesting to see how fast abundance or artificial intelligence is coming. Here's one thing they made too, is we're moving from a world of scarcity to a world of abundance. And there's going to be a lot of pain with that. We presently have enough to feed the world, enough to educate the world, enough to give the world jobs. We just don't have a good distribution system to get it to everyone. So that's what they're working on as well. Anyway, I'll stop with what's going on with Abundance 360. It's a wonderful program. It's overwhelming as far as everything, if I present it to you that way. But I'm going to give you a few pieces, just a few hints of what we're going to talk about in our program coming up here next week, if you will, at the Country Club Blue Mound. And also then we've got the Country Club up in, which is different this year. And we'll talk about it at the end, Country Club Beautimore up in Appleton. So with that, what I'd like to do is pass it to Zach. But before I do, the last thing they said as we left Abundance 360, and I agree with this, you will live in a world that I can't believe. So in other words, think about this. I turned it around. You will live in a world of I can't believe ... Curing cancers, curing Alzheimer's, the internet beamed directly into your brain, able to sleep perfectly, able to reduce the age of your cells so you can be healthy as long as you live. These are the things you will live in a world of I can't believe. Anyway, So with that, I want to pass this off to Zach. How about some Zach's facts?
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. And I could listen to you talk about that technology all day long. Especially, it's cool to see some of the things you talked about 5 years ago already happening at a rapid pace. We'll go through the 2022 year-to-date returns for indexes. And with these, always have the perspective of we're using a very short-term window with these numbers. If we look back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we're significantly above these numbers. But just to stay consistent with previous webinars, I'm just going to give the year-to-date. All of the indexes are temporarily correction phase. The S&P 500 temporarily down 12.4. The Dow Jones 8.53. The NASDAQ, we've seen the most significant downward movement in the short term. Remember, that's 50% technology, 20.16 on the year. Russell 2000, 15.8. The growth portion of small caps is 22.14 and value 9.42. So we're still seeing the disparation between growth and value, especially on the small cap side, but really creates unique opportunities for rebalancing when that's part of your normal process and reviews. We're seeing a lot of outflow from things that haven't done as poorly over the short term and buying more of the small cap growth, the large cap growth, and those other companies as well. On the international, 13.74 temporarily correction, emerging markets 15.49. One really bright spot that we touched on a few weeks ago as well is if it made sense in your portfolio and you own a small sleeve of alternatives, that fund is actually up 28%. So again, with rebalancing, it's an amazing tool because we're trimming off of that and buying more of what historically has performed much better over time. And then one thing we wanted to share, we always talk about JP Morgan Guide to the Markets and going through 80 to 90 different slides and bringing those to you. One that we constantly talk about, both in our seminars and reviews, is intra-year declines. And just as a reminder, since 1980, there's been an intra-year on average decline of 14%. And 32 of those 42 years, even with the average decline of 14%, 32 of those 42 have actually ended up positive with an average annual return of 9.4%. So we always get the recency bias and beware of it, just in the sense of we hear that this hasn't happened before. We haven't had this type of volatility when in fact, it's actually normal and completely part of the long-term plan that Chris mentioned in the beginning too. Just a shorter term window I wanted to bring to you with that same chart. Since 2000, 15 of those 22 years, there's been a 10% temporary decline in the S&P 500. But yet 15 of those years ended up positive for the year, 12 of which were up over 10%. If you're retired, this is why we have bonds and alternatives. If you're working, this is just a great time to continue the contributions to your retirement account. And if you have some of that outside cash that you're thinking about getting to work, maybe a good time to do that as well. Just a couple things. We always get questions on what are we doing behind the scenes, and we've done this as a team ever since I've started, and we've done it as a team even longer than that, 20 years or longer. But we're constantly looking to see if it makes sense for your scenario during these times of Roth conversions, potential tax harvesting of some kind, rebalancing, or getting that outside money to work. And we're constantly screening through to see who it makes sense for and if it makes sense for your scenario. And as always, I try to leave a fact with you guys. I always enjoy reading the history and what happened on this day. So in 1981 on this day, Xerox, PARC, debuted the first personal computer mouse. So don't know why I decided to share that to you. I was scrolling through with the mouse in my hand and saw that and thought that was an interesting one. But 41 years ago, they debuted the personal computer mouse. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Chris.
Outstanding. Thank you, Zach. What's interesting about this as well, and this is different. So I've talked to some other advisors that they've actually called me on for some questions. And what's interesting is that many of them said, oh man, you're lucky that we had that sleeve of low core in the or sleeve of a category in the alternatives, if you will. Interesting to say, but it's on purpose. It's preparing for times like these where we're not prepared for, or where we're not, I guess, it's prepared for all futures, which we don't know what's going to happen. So in other words, it's an all-weather portfolio, like an all-weather tire. What's interesting though, as well, is what's different here, and you haven't lived it unless you're 65, 70 years old, is that interest rates are going up at the same time. So you're seeing bonds get hit. Bonds and bond funds get hit 7 and 8 and 9%. So your 50-50 portfolio where bonds normally hold up, actually you're finding the S&P and bonds are down about the same. So as you take a look at that, that's where a lot of people are freaked out going, wait, I thought bonds were going to hold me up. And we have some different categories of bonds that are. We have one that's working just like bonds are, which is they're a little bit hit now, and we knew that would occur, but you're finding them down as much as the S&P, which is kind of an interesting time. So in perspective, it's interesting to watch those. We also had a couple of reports recently, some major tech companies. Today, Microsoft beat earnings consistently, but there were 2 or 3 major ones. I'm not sure if you've heard of Netflix. Any of you don't share your passwords anymore, because that's what they're trying to get away from. But they had they had a massive reduction in their price due to a miss in earnings. And also yesterday, I believe Alphabet, which is Google, also had a miss slightly with great growth, but they didn't quite hit the high end of earnings. And you'll see that some of those companies are being beaten up. Tesla's worried about Elon Musk's venture into Twitter. Of course, he's very well. Here's an interesting thing. So at the 10360, they talked about Peter's good friends with Elon Musk. What Elon Musk does, he watches for trends, very small trends of things that double. And he looks for those over time, and he watches them way before you and I. He's looking at data way before you and I do. And then he jumps into an industry to intersect that growth when it starts to move up dramatically. It's kind of an interesting thing, but that's what he's done his whole life. I don't know that that's the case with Twitter. With Twitter, I think he's just having fun. It's kind of like a frat boy fun. I'm going to take this over and do it, but we'll see. He usually does pretty crazy things. Maybe he literally is crazy this time. All right, if I may, Ken, how about for Ken's Corner? I appreciate that. What do we have for some good planning? I know Zach took a couple of them, but what do you got for us, Ken?
Yeah, Zach took a couple of them, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit. And recently, I was able to sit down with one of a local partner who's in the business lending area at a bank locally, and she's lending out money to certain companies. And I was just asking her, what's going on in the industry globally, if you will. Who are you lending to and why? And so we talked a little bit about the Russia-Ukraine situation. And I said, we all know about the gas prices going up because of that, but what were some of the other things that came up? And she said that there's a huge demand for cars. I think a lot of people know that with the new cars and the used cars. And the reason why is that she said that there was 4 million cars that didn't get produced last year because of the supply chain issue. So 4 million cars didn't get produced. So, as cars age on the road, what happens with that? And that's why you see such a big demand there. Also, when it comes to some of the metals like palladium, and I said, well, what's palladium used and where is it a lot of it produced? And she said it's used in catalytic converters. And a lot of that comes from the Russia-Ukraine area. So we're seeing a lot of demand for that there. Also, cold roll steel, she was saying, went from $600 for a spot price up to $1,900 for a spot price. So you're seeing a lot of the, not just more demand for something, but the price is increasing so much, and they're having to extend a lot of the lending to these companies that are using a lot of these products in their products, if you will. Also, chips. I know Chris talks a lot about chips and processing, and you look at that piece. There's something called neon gas that I learned about, that 75% of the neon gas is produced in Russia and Ukraine as well, which is pretty interesting. So, you look at the chip shortage, hey, why are we waiting for cars for 6 months, 8 months? Sometimes it's a chip issue. And she was saying, hey, with this electric vehicle phase coming out and this craze going on, if we think we have a chip shortage now, there's even more chips in EV cars as well. So that's going to be something interesting that we're all going to be paying attention to. I know Chris has a good handle on the technology, so he has his finger on the pulse there. So I just thought it was really interesting to hear from a local partner on business lending, what's happening there and why. She also mentioned in Taiwan, a lot of these things get produced in Taiwan, and they have rolling shutdowns there because of COVID. And so, once things get going, all of a sudden we have to shut down for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And that creates that whole bottleneck in the supply chain as well. So, with that being said, I'll pass it over to Chris. I just wanted to give you a few factoids that I heard from some local business lending that's going on around the area.
Awesome, Ken. I appreciate that. Also, local lending is that rates are up about 2% since their lows about 3 months ago, which is amazing to see as well. So that's been a kind of a fright to consumers as well. Although I just read today that Florida has become the least affordable state to live in. Kind of interesting. Everybody moving to Florida. They've got all the cities, just last year, 50,000 people moved to the Sarasota area, something like 20,000 moved to the Naples. If you put in the Boca, all these different areas, there was like 300,000 people moved to Florida last year in an already crowded state whose traffic is extremely slow. So interesting to watch that, but it's become the least affordable state, they said, to live in. despite many people moving there thinking that they were going to get a bargain by moving there from cities like Chicago or New York or others. Now, it's if you look at other cities maybe, but it's interesting to watch that. Inflation is hitting all of us. When you buy groceries, I've noticed it lately as well. What used to maybe cost, $100 is now $150. And that's where you see it pretty dramatically. And the food costs, even if your local restaurants, you'll notice they're going to raise prices dramatically because the cost of the substrate underneath has gone up significantly. So we'll see that. But that's also, we put a lot of money into people's hands and they're spending it now. They saved a lot of it, but now they're willing to let it go and spend it. Vacation, homes, they're saying, listen, who knows if we're going to make it past this? So we're going to continue to spend. People are still in that realm. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. So let me go to Mike's Minute with Ryan, which is kind of fun. Ryan, what have you heard in some of the research you guys have done in the last few weeks?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, proud here to be standing in for Mike's Minute. Just a few points, which actually, you and Ken have already touched on a couple of these things. So I love hearing from you guys that you're hearing the same thing I'm hearing. And sometimes, you guys come out and say something ahead, and then I can go to our fund managers and say, hey, what are you seeing in relation to this? So one of those points that was brought up recently is, the volatility in the markets that we've been seeing, this correction that we've been seeing. We're in earnings season for some of the world's biggest companies that you already mentioned. And around earnings time, sometimes even when they have positive outperformance, you'll still see a correction in that stock price. And likewise, sometimes those companies that aren't showing great earnings will have an uptick in stock price. So it's really kind of an unpredictable time in the markets with that volatility around earnings season, which of course happens quarterly, and they report on the previous quarter's earnings. Something else that was brought up from the same fund company recently, the bond market, which you touched on as well. Negative real yield was 30% of the bond market was producing a negative real yield recently. And that now has kind of normalized back to only about 4 or 5% producing a negative real yield. So we're seeing the bond market start to catch up and correct itself a little bit with the inflation and other issues that we've been having the last couple of years. And I think a positive note on this one, inventory levels. So goods that we purchase as well as materials used to produce our goods, those inventory levels are returning to pre-pandemic trend levels. So, not everything obviously, as Ken touched on with the Russia-Ukraine situation, not all of our materials are returning to levels that we want to see, but we are seeing that, department stores and some of our local sources, they're starting to catch up now and get inventory levels back to where they actually feel that they're overstocked on some things. So hopefully that'll start to, if we could predict the future, hopefully that'll start to stabilize some things with our market. But as always, yet to be seen. Back to you.
I appreciate that, Ryan. Yeah, we always hope for a more less volatile market, I should say. But actually, I'm going to say this: volatility equals risk, and risk equals what? Return. So if we're looking at a great setting for a return, just like the rain and the rainy weather we're having here, California would kill for this rain. So it's setting up for the flowers and things to grow here. So this is setting up for the next segment of the market. So I appreciate all the volatility and all the uncertainty that has often in my career bred very good things on the other side of it. So the faith, patience, and discipline to get through this are extremely important right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Ashley right now, and she's going to talk about what's important to watch at Gentian this week or for the next few weeks.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning. As Chris mentioned, we will be hosting our spring forums next week already, which is Tuesday, May the 3rd. Our team will be hosting at Butamore Country Club in Appleton. So we look forward to seeing those Appleton guests at 11 a.m. Again, location change, Butamore Country Club, and you'll see a confirmation about that in the coming days as well. And the next day, we will be at Blue Mound Country Club on Wednesday, May the 4th. That forum will also begin at 11 a.m. and we look forward to seeing those guests in the Milwaukee area. Keep a lookout in your bulletin. We will have our next Ladies and Gentian coming up on Wednesday, May the 18th. We will be hosting that via Zoom beginning at 10 a.m. Central Time. We look forward to a guest speaker that will host us on planting and everything herbs. So please make sure to RSVP via Zoom for that. And our next May birthday club is going to be happening on Wednesday, May the 25th. week we had our April celebration for the April birthdays, and we had a wonderful turnout. So we look forward to seeing those of you celebrating a May birthday again here at our office at Gentian at 11 a.m. for lunch on May the 25th. And this is just a save the date. There will be a lot more information coming soon, but Gentian helps sponsoring and partnership with Gathering on the Green again this year. So we look forward to hosting 4 days of some awesome concerts coming up on July the 7th, July the 8th, July the 9th, and July the 10th. So more information again to come on that. And just please make sure to mark your calendars and check those things out on the bulletin. And Chris, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate it. In closing today, excuse me, I'd like to explain what my inspiration was of 7052. So 7052, I'm going to state something here, and allow me, for any of you who would like to listen, great, I appreciate that. But 7052, 70 came before 52. 52 is eternally grateful for the decision that allowed 52 to be here. 52 stands on the shoulders of 70 and reaches to places that 52 never could have gone. 52 understands hard work and sacrifice due to 70. 52 understands giving of self from 70. 70 models strength and perseverance to 52. 70's decisions gave 52 an advantage that many will never know. 70 modeled strength, 52 understands trust and inspire lived from 70. 52 cries at movies due to 70. 52 appreciates antiques and garage sales due to 70. 52 had an idyllic childhood due to 70. 52 married 51 and is blessed to have 15 and 13 due to 70. 70 shows 52 lifelong work and self-improvement. 70 teaches 15 and 13 to be strong individuals. 70 shows unconditional love to 52, 51, 15, and 13. 70 is responsible for so much in the world of 52. 70 affects thousands that 70 will never know in the name of 52. 52 is lucky to have a base like 70. 70 is the matriarch. 52 loves 70. Mom, your birthday is May 28th, or is April 28th. Thank you. I love you. That poem's for you. With that, thank you for allowing us to serve you here at Gentian. Our Gentian retirement is plan it, live it, give it. I'm going to also say express appreciation for others. Thank you on behalf of our team here at Gentian. Until next week, stay safe, stay positive, and be grateful. And the 7052, my mother is turning, this is quite interesting, 70. I am 52. She is born in 1952. I was born in 1970. The significance of 7052 doesn't happen often, but when it does, I like to cherish it and appreciate it. And I'm eternally grateful for 7052. Thank you.